my audition, I'm not sure I was good enough anyway, but after I did my audition, he said, change my mind, guys, I'm back in. But they decided to go from 4-piece to 5-piece and add me as another guitar player singer and expand their repertoire that way. So that's how I ended up joining.
Wow. Wow. I guess all those bands, though, as disastrous as they may be, the early bands, they still teach you something, right? I mean, you're learning.
Oh man, when you start off green as grass, I mean, I was this kid from Northern Ontario. I used to hear those records on the radio and or buy them and see the old Hit Parader magazines with the stories about them, or Crawdaddy or Cream or Rolling Stone, and I think, wow, those guys are the coolest. But I'm this high school kid from Northern Ontario. Those guys all live in the magical kingdom. How in the world would I ever get from Northern Ontario to the magical kingdom? There's no way. So, but the thing is, I just kept playing music, and I never even thought I would be a professional musician. We had in Ontario, grade 13. After 12th grade, there was an extra year of high school to get ready for university, and you had to have it in order to be admitted to university in those days. So I did grade 13 thinking, yeah, well, I guess I don't know what I'm going to do. It never even occurred to me that I could be one of those guys. I thought, okay, so my buddies and I were on the soccer team together. I was on the track team, the soccer team, and the school band, and the yearbook sports editor, and all kinds of things that I got involved in. Actually got my school letter, which I'm not sure how many rockers can say that.
Wow, dude, not many.
But no, and I loved high school. Great times, great friends, all these different types of people in the different groups I associated with, sports teams and music things. But I thought, well, my buddy and I, we were going to go study phys ed at York University in Toronto, and they didn't have a soccer team. So okay, well, we're going to keep the soccer thing going. We're going to go be the place kickers for the football team then. And that was my plan. I finished grade 13. I was playing weekends a lot with my friends with the band, the first one that went on the road, the high school buddies. But I never thought at that time I'd be one of those guys that make records and you'd hear them on the radio.
Yeah.
It wasn't even in my imagination that I could get there. But while I was doing all these, I decided to take a year off from school and then go to university. And of course, in that year, everything changed. Me playing more gigs, getting serious. We joined the union. I recorded my first demo with the band of songs I'd written, and one foot in front of the other, you just keep, well, I did this, now I'll do that. And it led to music inevitably, because I just kept getting better and better and better and learning more.
Wow. So did you ever finish university?
Never went back.
Never went back. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the one thing that really wiped me out was when we were doing the research for the phys ed course, we actually did an orientation day at the school, or you go to the university, look around, and then I found out you study phys ed, you have to dissect a cadaver. And I went, whoa, no way am I doing that. I'm not taking phys ed now.
Yeah.
I like the exercise part and the sports and the coaching and the teaching. No way am I doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you, was music always your thing, or were you involved in other activities, which you've told me you were? But one of the activities that you were involved in, I guess, as a young guy, you said road hockey, which I guess is just like ice hockey, but it's on skates, right?
It's you're running around in your running shoes in the snowy parking lots at the high school or out on the street, or that scene in Wayne's World where they're out in the street and they yell "car." That's life in Canada.
Yeah,
it really. That big Mike Moore. No, is that the right name?
No, not Michael Moore. Mike
Myers.
Myers. Yeah.
Mike Myers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike Myers. He grew up in Scarborough, which is part of Toronto, and that's just what you did in the winters when you were a kid. You take out some nets, put them on the road, and then each time a car comes, you yell "car," and everybody steps aside, pulls the nets off the road. Then the car is gone. You pull everything and resume the game. So that was something we loved to do. And I played ice hockey too, but I wasn't as good as a young fella as I was later on when I got a pair of skates that fit me. Well, my family wasn't very wealthy, so I remember I had the same pair of skates for about 8 years, and they were from the Skate Exchange, hand-me-downs at the time. They have a thing in Canada where you can go get used gear for a lot less money. So I had a Bobby Hull CCMs, size 10s, and I couldn't figure out why, I couldn't stand very well in them, but I was in great shape, and I was doing the weights and all that stuff, and I was a 400-meter sprinter on the track team. So I was burning way more energy to skate at all than I should have been. And then finally, I went and got fitted, and a friend of mine was a pro hockey player from Chicago Black Sox, and he said, "You know what? Looking at your feet, you should try size 7, because you really want those skates to squash your feet, because you have more control that way."
Sure. Yeah.
So suddenly, wow, this is like having running shoes on the ice. It feels so good. So that was a big leap forward to me, just getting skates that fit.
Wow. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned car, because that brings back memories for me, because we used to play football on the street.
Yeah.
Inevitably, someone would yell car because we'd have to, get out of the road while, the cars pass. So I guess a lot of us experienced car.
Yeah. Yeah. Depending where you live, you just play a different sport out in the street.
Right. So you ended up in Coney Hatch. Great songs. Now, we still play several of your songs on the zoo, on the radio. There was a FM station here in Dallas called KZW,
Yeah.
aka the Zoo, and it still exists today, but it's not FM. It's streamed all over the world.
Okay.
So we still play your music. So, well, we play April Wine and the Guess Who as well, but we play a number of Coney Hatch tunes. So that's really cool. Tell me about Coney Hatch. The band was already formed when you started, right?
They've been going for about 8 months, I guess. And as so often happened, I described, you leave home with your high school buddies and you go out on the road with your rock band, and reality just goes smack, 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 punching you in the face over and over. Some guys can take it, other guys can't. And, my first band, everybody quit, went home, went back to school, got married, got jobs. This is too hard. I said, where's my next band? And so when Coney Hatch first went out, there was a few guys that knew each other. And the singer who I replaced, he was an AC/DC freak. So when I joined, the band had been doing a bunch of AC/DC and stuff like that. But he decided this is too hard, and he quit to go back to university, and he became an engineer, and he's very happy living in Ottawa now with an engineering firm. And we're friends to this day, the guy I replaced, because he had no bitterness about it. He was done.
Yeah.
So I went to meet them after I saw that ad, and I did an audition. And the funny thing is, I went to see them play in a bar with the old guy before I joined, before I did an audition. And they played a bunch of original songs, and I thought right away, okay, that's cool, because you can't get anywhere without your own songs. Nobody will sign a record deal with somebody that plays AC/DC really great. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, they had about 10 or 12 of their own songs. Now they were kind of, as I said to myself, these are the strangest original songs I've ever heard from a band, but at least they're doing it. And funny thing, of all those songs they had at that time, only one of them ever made it to a record. And when I got in, we started writing new material, and I started singing a lot of the songs that we were working on at that time. And Andy Curran, who was the founder of the band, really, with the drummer Dave Ketchum, always wanted to be a singer himself, but he has quite a different vocal approach. We used to call it talk singing when we first started, but now he's figured out some melodies in there as well.
Yeah.
And we're dear friends to this day for many reasons. But once I got in there with Coney Hatch, I didn't really think about it. It just felt, okay, here's a band that, we can go places. It was a perfect 4-way balance of personalities. Everybody sort of keeping the other one in check, so that nothing ever went too far in one direction. Nobody got too crazy with the others, because we had a good collection of energy between us. And for those who are into astrology, we had one each: one earth, one air, one fire, one water. And really, if that was a factor, I'll buy it because it worked.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to tell me that's why, I'll say sure, why not?
Right.
So we were writing songs right from the second week we were together, getting up in the morning after playing till 2 a.m. the night before to go into the bar before it opened and rehearsing, while the caretakers were vacuuming around the place, and we'd go on the stage with our gear still awake, waking up with a cup of coffee, hungover, party, whatever. But we'd work on the new songs because that's how we wanted to develop our act. That was the only time to do it, because we'd be out on the road playing in a bar for 6 nights in one place sometimes. Then on Sunday, you drive to the next town, then you're there for another 6 nights, and you never go home. You don't have a way to rehearse at home. So this was the way for us to progress and develop our material. And about 3 months after I joined, we had a gig in downtown Toronto for the first time, a famous place that isn't there anymore called the Gasworks. And all of Canada's biggest bands went through the Gasworks in Toronto at some point. Rush was there, Triumph was there, Max Webster was there. Everybody you can think of from Canada that became well known went through that bar at some point. So we met Kim Mitchell at that time, who was the leader of Max Webster, now is highly regarded solo artist for many years. And he had just quit Max Webster and was looking for something to do. So he came, saw us, said hello, talked a bit. Well, we heard a couple of days later, he called our management at the time and said, I want to work with these guys. So let's schedule a demo session and I'll produce a demo for them. And I still have the notebook. We were up in northern Quebec somewhere when we got the news. And I have this notebook where I wrote down in the journal to myself, Kim Mitchell called our manager and he's going to produce a demo and it's unbelievable. My scroll gets this big on the page, because that was, as I said, I never imagined I'd be one of those guys. And suddenly a guy that's in that magic kingdom is reaching down. Here, guys, come on in. I'll help you.
Yeah.
Wow. At that time, I'd already decided if I don't have a record deal by the time I'm 25, I should probably consider going back to school and, taking life seriously. Well, by the time I was 25, we were working on the third Coney Hatch album.
Wow. I just had Kim Mitchell on my show last week.
Wow.
Dude, seriously. And I told Kim, I said, they played a little bit of his solo work here in the States, but, he was a lot more popular in Canada. Yeah. Except for Go for Soda. Yeah, dude. And I'm going to tell you, I remember when I was a little guy, I think I had a paper route. I mean, I was a little guy and I heard that song and I was like, I loved it, and I was like, Kim Mitchell, who is Kim Mitchell? And, now, the other day I'm talking to him via Zoom. Such a cool guy. I mean, I'm not shocked that he, was like that with you guys, because such a good spirit,
Yeah, we owe Kim totally for our start.
Yeah.
Because he shopped around for a record deal for us, produced our first demo, then produced our first album. And he brought us, as I say, he opened the door and said, come on in, guys.
Yeah. That is awesome. I'm glad you shared that. You guys, Coney Hatch, opened up for some really great tours, including Iron Maiden's Peace of Mind tour, yes, and Judas Priest Screaming for Vengeance tours. I mean, what's your favorite memory of those tours?
Oh, gee, there were so many great moments, especially us. We had just done our first album in 82. It came out, and we had a few dates opening for people in different shows in the States and then back in Canada. Our first ever big show at home was with Cheap Trick and Ted Nugent, opening in that ballpark I told you where the Blue Jays used to play,
yeah,
Exhibition Stadium, where I saw the Guess Who for the first time. So suddenly here I am now in the place where I went to see my first big concerts, and I'm playing this place, and that was really just a thrill. But then we got on an opening concert club tour in the States with Eddie Money and Edgar Winter and Peter Frampton and people like that, all these different dates around the Eastern Seaboard. And we get a call. You're on the Judas Priest tour. Start in Quebec City tomorrow night. Start driving.
Wow.
So I remember we got to Quebec City. The show was in the old Colisée where the Quebec Nordiques hockey team used to play before they went and became the Colorado Avalanche. And so I don't know if you remember, there was the Bob Dylan with the band live album Before the Flood or After the Flood. I forget what it was called. With the album cover and all the lighters showing a photo of all the lighters out in the arena from the stage. Well, they announced, Mesdames et Messieurs, bienvenue, Connie Hedge! And we hear, and we're backstage, my hair's standing on my head, you know, we're just so excited, and we walk out, and of course this is before people had cell phones to wave around. Yeah. Everybody has a lighter, and the whole arena is being lit up by lighters as far as you could see. And imagine the excitements. We must have played our set double speed because we were just so adrenaline filled. But we went over great, and we did the rest of the Judas Priest tour across Canada and down the Western United States. And we got to know those guys. Halford was probably the friendliest, for reasons which we understood better later. You know, we were pretty young guys, and he liked our bass player Andy, it turns out, even though that was a growth experience for me. It's just backstage one day, I'd really only known people that like to kiss girls, and suddenly we're backstage, and he says, "Oh, Carl, have you met my lover John?" And he went, "No, John and I haven't met. Hi, John." And I'm processing lover. Okay, so I guess it must be true what they say. But he was a really friendly guy. The others were kind of standoffish in Judas Priest, actually. They as opposed to Iron Maiden the next year, they were just blokey, friendly guys, all of them, you know. Even Bruce, who had, you know, kind of a King Kong-sized ego, but he still engaged with us. And I guess there was a little bit of a rivalry between the singer guys, between me and Bruce. But one of our greatest stories from that Iron Maiden tour, there was a cancellation of a few dates where I think we did 40 shows with them that year in all. And so the tour was interrupted. Nico McBrain got a lead poisoning. He claimed he stabbed himself with a pencil, and he couldn't play drums or else it would go to his heart and possibly kill him. Some kind of blood poisoning thing. So the whole tour grinds to a halt. Everybody goes home. Then they pick up the tour again for the remaining dates of that run. I think there were 6 more dates. So we rejoined them after a month or whatever time it was for Nico to get better. And then the final show was in the Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis. And of course, legendary antics. So final show of a tour, people play jokes on each other. So our, Steve, our guitar player, and Andy thought, this will be so funny. We'll go on stage and pie them with cream pies, but we'll make the pies with shaving cream and cat food hidden under the shaving cream. And I'm thinking, guys, I'm not sure that's a good idea. And our tour manager didn't think it was a good idea either, but they're thinking, hey, no, this will be great. They make up the pies to be ready for later. Then we go on stage, do our opening set. Well, didn't our tour manager tell the Iron Maiden guys, hey, you won't believe this, but the Coney guys, they've made up these cat food pies to cream you with on stage. And they go, oh, bloody well, did they?
Oh,
so
no.
he was a bit of a Benedict Arnold. He took them into the dressing room, showed them where the pies were, just in case they were interested. In the middle of our set, they burst onto the stage to pie us with our own cat food pies. so there's our drummer Dave, and Nico comes up with a pie in each hand. He goes on either side of his head. So he's got these cat food pies while he's kind of trying to keep drumming. They got Andy and Steve with just clobbered them with the pies. I think they knew they were the culprits, the main culprits. And then Adrian Smith is coming after me. And you know, I was pretty athletic, and I was deking him and dodging him, and then I suddenly thought, I can't make Adrian look bad in front of his crowd. So I stood still and I let him get me, and he was merciful. He just went on my bare chest because I had a vest on or something. So he just stuck it on my chest, and we grinned at each other, and then they left the stage. So I still have the audio tape somewhere. You could just hear this while we're getting pied, our hands are, the guitars are ringing with no hands on the strings, and we're trying to clean ourselves off, keep singing. And so yeah, that was a big fun moment on the Iron Maiden tour.
Wow. Gosh. Okay, let's talk about the Guess Who. I think you started with them in '97. You were the lead singer.
It was a total of about 8 years across 2 different stints. Okay. Yeah, I got the gig at the end of '97, and once again it was a lead singer who was quitting, and they'd kept the band going with the original bass player and drummer and a few other guys to work with them over the years. So I got the call from a friend of mine. What are you doing? Well, as it happened, I was just kind of wondering, I wonder what my friend, the piano player, he was the piano player in the Guess Who, I wonder what Leonard's doing. So I get a call from him within a couple of days, and he said, well, we need a singer. Are you interested? And I said, sure, let's have a go. But in fact, he had asked me 6 years earlier than that, and I had just signed a songwriting deal to be a staff songwriter with a publishing company in the States. So I wasn't really at liberty to do it, but I met with Jim Cale anyway. We went to lunch together, and we talked about everything, and he realized, yeah, you got the goods, you can sing and play. But then he told the guys later, he looks too young to be in this band. So I guess 6 years later, I had aged enough to be considered properly. So I did the audition, got the gig, and that went on for till mid 2000, when the original guys from the Guess Who wanted back in to do a reunion tour, and there was big bucks on the table for them if they did this. So the guys we were working with, they didn't want to really give up control of what they were doing, but on the other hand, there were seriously big bucks available for them if they sent us home and let the original guys come back in. So at the time, I was such a fan of the Guess Who, as I say, they were like Canada's Beatles, and I had loved their records and saw them in the early days. So I thought, I want to see this. Sure, please, have your chair back, Burton. And so within a year of that change, I got a call from April Wine. Hey, what are you doing? Because I knew them from over the years and doing a few shows opening for them with my solo band. I had a few different versions of the Carl Dixon band. So they needed somebody to join and be keyboards, guitar, percussion, and backing vocals. So that's what I ended up doing with April Wine for about 4 years. And then because they were doing one-nighters all over the place, and they had all these different opening acts, and the crew was just grumbling about it, because you'd have the opening acts, biggest night of their lives, were playing in Chilliwack, BC, and the local rock band, the agent gives them a shot to be on with the big guys, and it's the biggest night of their lives. So they show up, they're feeling like rock stars. They don't want to set up their equipment. They want somebody to do it for them. They don't want to get off the stage when it's time. They're in the biggest moment of their lives. And then they don't want to pull their stuff off the stage because they're getting the congratulations from all their hometown fans. So the opening acts were always a problem. And I said to the guys running it, after the first year I saw this, and I said, you know what? I do a solo acoustic show. And actually I played all the way home from a bus drive from Minneapolis back to Canada. All night we were driving, and I just kept playing and singing. So anyway, yes, April Wine had difficulty with the opening acts every night, and they knew I could do this solo acoustic show. And the funny thing is, when I joined, they had a 4-piece unit going for a while, a number of years, and then they expanded that to 5-piece, and they had to, pay a 5th guy. So I made a deal with them. I want this much money a week to do the job. They said, okay, fine. So the end of the first year, they come to me and said, well, they sent the tour manager, the guys in the band want me to tell you, Carl, they love what you're doing, but you have to take a pay cut because you're making more than they are now.
Oh, wow.
So I said, wow, okay. Well, that's nice to hear. That they like what I'm doing part. Tell you what, I'll trade you your pay cut for you making me the opening act every night with my solo acoustic show. Then that solves the problem of all these troublesome local rock bands on the biggest night of their lives. You just have to have me there with my guitar and a microphone. You don't have to tear anything down. You don't have to move April Wine stuff. You can just leave it set up. And then I'll go do the show and then I'll join the band afterward. He said, wow, that's a great idea. I bet they'll go for this. So the agent at first said, you can't have an acoustic guy opening for a rock band. You have to have a rock band with a rock band. But the fact is, how many of us have been through that experience where you go to see somebody and then they have the opening act blow your doors off before you even get to see the band that you came to watch? So it worked out great. So I did that for the next 3 years. Now, the funny thing is, they got their pay cut, which they felt good about, and it wasn't a huge one. I think they asked me to take 200 less a week or something to just make them feel better about the deal.
Right.
I ended up making some weeks $1,000 more than I used to, just by going out and doing that solo acoustic show. Actually, more than that. Some weeks $1,500 more than I would have otherwise. Because now I'm the solo acoustic guy, opening the show and then playing with the band. But Miles Goodwin, the leader, he did say to me after the first week or two, okay, well, you have to make sure you at least put on a different shirt between sets, so it doesn't look like the same guy. Yeah. Okay, they'll never figure that out, Miles. And Jerry Mercer, the drummer, he would always want to come out and jam with me, And Miles would yell at him, Jerry, you can't go out and jam with the opening act. We're the headliners, for God's sake. So poor old Jerry, we ended up doing a few shows together, just the two of us in later years. But
what great exposure, though, for your solo stuff.
It sure was.
That would be worth more than 200 a week.
Oh, exactly. As soon as I said that, I'll trade you you can have your pay cut, give me the opening act slots. And, the opening act budget was never much. The promoters didn't want to pay much. It was $300 to $700 a night, but you'd have whole bands coming in playing for that, just for the chance to open for April Wine,
Sure.
But then there's just little old me pocketing it all myself. The agent didn't even take a cut. So
wow.
That worked out great.
Oh,
and
yeah.
But at the end of the fourth year, they started to say, we're just feeling the pinch a little bit, so right at the time they started to realize they just couldn't afford me. The Guess Who reunion broke up. Well, it was on the way out. Burton wanted to just take it easy because he could afford to. He's a rich guy, so is Randy Bachman.
Yeah.
But the two guys that I used to work with, the bass player and the drummer, or as they used to call themselves, the Bat Boy and the Water Boy, they didn't have that fortune in the bank and the big royalty checks coming in the mail every so often. So they had to get back to work. It was, Burton said, I probably don't want to work next year and maybe not the year after that either. And they're going, we will lose our homes if we do what you're doing, Burton. So they called me at the end of 2004